thought I'd answer a viewer question today. One of my viewers recently wrote me and said, what's the difference between treated seeds and untreated seeds? Lots of people buying seeds right now, they're putting in their seed orders, order online, and often when you do that, you get the option, treated or untreated. So let's start with untreated. That's the easiest one to explain. Untreated seed is just any plant that made a flower, and that flower created the seeds, and those seeds dried and fell off, and you collect the seeds. It's untreated. It's basically the way any seed in nature would be, created and presented to the soil, sort of thing, right? So it's just a seed with nothing on it. A treated seed, by contrast, is a seed that's been coated with something that prevents a known problem for that particular seed from happening. It could be a kind of pesticide that keeps some kind of pest from boring into that seed, if it's a known problem that can decrease the viability of the seeds. It can also be a fungicide, things of that nature. So it's usually treated seed is there's some sort of chemical compound, pesticide or a fungicide, or other things to prevent rot. That still would be a kind of fungicide, I imagine. But it's treated with some sort of chemical compound that prevents a problem that is common to that particular variety of plant. So it's different for every plant. It really depends on what the problem is with that plant. So the decision you have to decide is, how concerned are you about that risk? And sometimes the treated seeds cost a little bit. Sometimes they cost the same. Sometimes they cost a little bit more. Like if you're getting a small pack for a backyard garden type situation, it might be $1 more for the treated seeds. Now number one, I would guess a lot of people, they're just like, well, I don't want chemicals in my garden, so I'm not going to get the treated ones. And of course, if that's the way, if that's what's important to you, that's fine. Really, let's say you went to the store and the only ones they had were treated, right? And there was a great price. Let's just say. I mean, we're talking about such a tiny, whatever the stuff is, there's such a tiny amount. It's often not the poison; it's the dosage. How much, right? There's, I enjoy a good glass of whiskey once in a while, and a shot of whiskey is toxic, because if I drank a bottle of whiskey, it could kill me, right? So it's about how much, right? So you think about, you've got like, maybe a teaspoonful of seeds, maybe a tablespoonful of seeds, and each of those seed has some tiny trace amount of something on it. So, I wouldn't really worry too much about, personally, I wouldn't really worry too much about that. If you're going to ask me what I tend to buy, I tend to go with the untreated because they tend to be cheaper. And for most things you're growing, like let's say kale, you're going to get 200 seeds in a pack for like $1.99. The purpose of them treating the seeds is to ensure germination. Okay, so it's really important if you've got some huge agricultural setup and you're using a machine to plant everything, and you're not overseeding. The seeds are integral to your margins, your the equation you have for turning a profit, right? So you pay the extra per seed, and you pay for that guaranteed 97% germination, or whatever the guaranteed germination rate of that seed is. These aren't concerns we really care about as home gardeners. I mean, I always overseed my carrots, for instance. So, the way I seed my carrots is so sloppy, right? I just sort of put a bunch of my hands and sort of go like this in a row. Even if I had 50% germination, I'd still have to thin them out anyway, because I always put way too many seeds down there. For a lot of things, I tend to overseed like that. Because there's just so many seeds that come in the pack, and even with a large garden like mine, 2,500 square feet, there's always more seeds in it. I always have leftover seeds at the end of the season, and that's always been the case as long as I've been a gardener. I'm sure you can use, certain kinds of seeds don't keep well and certain kinds do. You can use them in subsequent years. But yeah, you're going to tend to have way more. If you get 200 seeds in a $1.99 pack of kale seeds, you're not going to grow 200 kale plants if you're a backyard gardener. At least I don't think that's likely. In my experience, like a dozen or 18 kale plants. It gives you kale all season long, and you got enough left over for the winter, and it's a lot of kale, right? So 200 seeds, 18, 20 plants, something like that. It's a lot of kale because plants get big, right? So for me, I don't really bother with them. I'm not worried about, often the difference is the treated seeds will give you, let's say, a 97% germination rate, and the untreated ones give you an 80% germination rate. Well, if I got 200 seeds, I'm fine with 160 of them germinating, or whatever that math is, right? I don't care, because I'm not going to grow 160 kale plants, or 160 carrots, sort of thing, right? I don't mind, it's all a question of what's important to you. But yeah, the germination rate, that's more of a concern for someone running a farm, a large sort of agricultural type setup. Another thing, the seeds, you can have seeds that are pelletized or they're coated with something. Those seeds, that doesn't necessarily mean the seed is treated with anything. That could just be sugar or some sort of material that keeps the seeds loose and allows some sort of seed planting machine to select and plant them individually. Like sometimes I'll get carrots that are pelletized. The carrot seeds, this tiny little thing. It's it's the smallest, hardest kind of. It's very difficult to plant individual carrot seeds. If you get them pelletized, each seed becomes like the size of a grain of rice, so much easier to handle and manage. And if you got some sort of machine that you're cranking that's spitting them out, it really speeds things up as well. But you pay for that; those cost more too. But yeah, just because the seed is coated or pelletized, that doesn't necessarily mean it's treated with any sort of chemical. That's probably just some sort of sugar or something like that, which sugar is a chemical compound, but often it's not a toxin, right? It's not toxic to anything. So yeah, treated versus untreated. The main reason you'd want to get a treated seed is if you were concerned about some pest or some problem affecting the seed and greatly decreasing your germination rate, or maybe even compromising the entire sowing of the crop. In my experience, it's not. It happens sometimes. Sometimes I'll plant stuff, and it just never comes up, and I just replant. And perhaps in those instances, if I'd had treated seeds, whatever caused the problem. Sometimes it's just too cold, and there's things that can attack the plant when the seeds are cold. Whatever caused the problem disappears when it gets a bit warmer, but if I'd used a treated seed, it wouldn't have been a problem. The seed would have come up eventually. For me, I really don't care, right? But I am not worried about toxifying my garden with some tiny trace amount of that. There's just not enough, whatever it is, in my opinion, it's just really not enough of it to cause a problem. So, use whatever you want to use, and square it with whatever ethics you have. My main reason for not using treated seeds is I don't care if the germination rate is 10% less. It's not a big deal for me. So if you can get untreated seeds and save a few bucks, go for it. For the home gardener, I don't see a real big advantage to getting treated seeds. But yeah, go for it if you want to. And don't sweat it if that's all you can get. I don't think you're going to turn your garden into a chemical soup from, some tiny little amount of stuff going in there. And most of that stuff breaks down anyway. So, yeah, I hope you found that, interesting. And I hope it answered your question, gave you something to chew on there. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.